Hey guys, in this second video I'm just going to be going through the different factions available in Gwent and touching on the different sorts of themes and decks that are available within each faction. So you can see the faction lineup here. This is the first screen you'll see when you jump into the deck builder. You've got Skellige, Northern Realms, Monsters, Scoia'tael, and Nilfgaard. Now the faction you choose will determine the leader card that you're able to choose. We'll be going over leaders in the next video. And it also largely determines the other cards you're able to put into your deck. Gwent does have quite a few neutral cards that can be put into any deck, but for the most part, the majority of your deck is probably going to be cards specific to the faction that you choose. So Skellige is a faction consisting of kind of Viking Islander type people, and they have decks that largely revolve around discarding units and other cards into your graveyard and then resurrecting them later on after they've powered up by being put into the graveyard. They've also got some decks that deal with wounding, so they've got cards that power up every time you wound an enemy, and they've also got cards that wound themselves and then can gain buffs after having been wounded. Northern Realms is kind of the vanilla human faction in Gwent and the Witcher universe. Northern Realms has decks that mainly revolve around military, like just putting lots of different units on the board and putting out knights and stuff that have armor, and also using siege equipment that puts some points onto the board but also is able to damage the enemy. The monster faction consists of all sorts of different creatures from the Witcher universe. They also include the Wild Hunt, which are the main antagonists of the Witcher 3 game. The monster faction has a few different deck types. They do things like summon weather that damages the opponents over time. They can do things like consume one another in order to gain strength. And they've also got some units that can carry strength over from one round to another. Scoia'tael is a faction that consists mainly of elves and dwarves. In the Witcher lore, the Scoia'tael are a group of guerrilla fighters that are fighting against humans, mainly in the Northern Realms, for freedom. Scoia'tael has quite a few different deck archetypes, but they have things largely having to do with special cards. So they're able to, for instance, resurrect special cards from their own graveyard to play them again, and summon special cards from within their deck to play them. They've also got ambush units, which are units you play face down on the board, and then they pop out later when certain triggers are activated. And they've got dwarf decks, where dwarves kind of buff each other and then can carry strength over from one round to another. Nilfgaard is the final faction. In Witcher lore, Nilfgaard is a large human empire, perhaps similar to the Roman Empire, that is south of the Northern Realms and much larger, more cohesive, and more powerful. The Nilfgaard faction has a few different deck types. They have a reveal deck archetype, which allows you to reveal cards in your opponent's hand, and also perhaps do damage and gain strength while doing so. And they have a lot of decks having to do with control, which means removing enemy units and kind of forcing the enemy to make suboptimal plays in order to win the round. So that's a general summary of the different factions, and in the next video I'll be jumping into each faction and showing off their leader cards.